Stream is live.
Excellent. Hello, everybody. This is Windy City Thetan Watch and Declared Dave loves suppressive Sherry.
Welcome. Hi,
Tonight,
everybody.
excellent to have everybody here. Um, Tonight, I just kind of want to do a week in review. We've got a couple of things that I think it's important that we hit. So we've got Nance Drew is going to be in court on Monday, May 20th. She's had some legal fees that she didn't anticipate, so we want to make sure that we're going to help and support her. We'll go over my friend Dave. I like how he's able to do, I'm going to say, a more educated or journalistic perspective as to what's going on in Scientology. He's just a well educated, never in, loves to study what's going on in this space. Um, and it's just, I really appreciate all that he has to do in this space. And then we'll kind of finish it off with it's been an interesting week or so. I think that I loved my live today, and I thought I had a good presentation on the um, how I treat the body routers, and that I don't care about the body routers. I have no desire to make contact with them. I'll do anything I can to help them, but for the most part, I just really want to help the people that they're talking to understand what they just received and how they were just contacted.
Yeah, I mean, I think and I said this in in your comments that it's good to see you in their studio some. I mean, people need to see that you are a general on the streets, but you are also a yeoman in the studio, and it's good to have you there doing these recaps, doing the mixing it up a little bit. I think people enjoy that. Definitely, I am right there with you with Nance Drew. Let's everybody get to, you know, helping her out with all that she can. I like the idea somebody had in her I think it was in Natalie's chat about, if you're a woman or you have mammaries or whatever you want to call them, that you can just donate your size or whatever. I mean, I just think that's a really great, really fun thing to do. I know I'm going to donate. Um, and we just really need to help her out and get her through this because it's just ridiculous to begin with. And the funny thing is this is not even a civil. This is a criminal thing, isn't it?
It is, and I
So
don't understand how PPAs work in Chicago, but in reality,
yeah.
the church imposed upon the police to enforce this.
Right, and the church isn't actually paying for any of this. The church is relying upon the public taxpayer to fund the DA or the prosecuting attorneys. And so they're actually usurping even more tax money by, filing a frivolous complaint that then is getting prosecuted through the judicial system, because in a criminal complaint, it's the state versus the the person. It's not Scientology versus Nance. That would be a civil case, and in that case, the church is on the spot for litigation fees and lawyer fees and everything. So for them to, not only are they going after her, or they filed a frivolous complaint, a frivolous criminal complaint, they are now usurping even more tax funds, more public resources away by even getting it to an initial arraignment or pretrial, um, and it's just ridiculous for us to allow the church to do that. And they're not on the hook for anything. All that all that has to happen now is Chatwick has to show up in court with probably a Scientology lawyer, although that isn't going to mean anything because he doesn't have to actually do anything. It's going to be the prosecutor that's going to choose whether or not to continue the case. And then it will probably be the judge that says, if the prosecutor doesn't drop the charges, it's going to be the judge that says, do you really have a case here? I mean, this is just going to be what they're going to try and do. Is they're going to try and get her to plead something. And that's what we hope that she doesn't have to do. She should not have to plead anything. Inconsequential or incidental contact happens every day on the streets. And there's no guarantee of a bubble around you. So it's ridiculous to even think that an incidental contact such as this should ever reach this point.
Agreed. Now, before we get going too far, I want to just say a couple of things, or not say a couple of things. If you're on your phone and you can only watch myself or Dave, let's watch Dave. Please watch from Dave's channel. I want to really, I think that Dave has an incredible voice, and I want to be able to signal boost that voice that's going on there. So if you're on your phone, I'm not at all offended. I appreciate each and every one of you that's here to help support me every day. But please go over and watch Dave's channel. If you're on a computer, please watch both of us.
Thanks, Wendy. Wendy and I were just talking before the show, and I don't have the benefit of being close to an org. So, because on my channel, Sherry and I like to go out, and we do like to protest, and we do like to audit the orgs. But unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we're safe from Scientology in Louisville, General here, and the closest org that I talk about all the time is the one up in Florence, Kentucky, which is the Greater Cincinnati org, which they used to be based in Cincinnati downtown proper in a high traffic area where LRH said that they should be. And what did they do? They went off and bought an old Baptist church in a suburb town across the river where there's nobody walking. Basically, you've seen my videos, and if you haven't seen my lives there, please check out the channel. We've been there at least 3 times. We've caught some morning staff arrivals. We've caught a graduation night. We've seen some very interesting characters show up. There's even, I believe that Mark Headley's mother and stepfather actually are on staff there or are public there. I've been told that I've caught them on camera. So, there's some definite interesting characters showing up there. The rest of my channel is doing the lives where I investigate the cult, investigate its history, investigate its nefarious acts, nefarious characters, the capers that it tries to put on. And that is a Scientology term, y'all. It used the word capers in the Paulette Cooper, uh, which I've got a live for that. So there's a lot of entertainment. It's long format content. So if you really like listening to, you know, put it in the background in your headphones while you're working or doing something, please. It's good. You're going to get a good hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours of content. And I like to do that with watching Wendy when he's out there. He did a 8 hour was your longest so far.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some stamina because you didn't even really break to eat, did you?
I did not.
Yeah.
I did do one break, and it was a bio break.
Oh my goodness. So, and I've been there. I did a surprise audit there or protest there in Chicago, and I mean it's a beautiful area, and I enjoyed my time there. And Sherry and I are hopeful to get back there, but I can just imagine you were there for a long time. So, yeah. So,
The thing that was really um, that I hated about that day was that I had been out there for quite some time. The assault occurs, and it's 90 minutes before the police even arrive. And once they arrive, it was just uh, it was so depressing to see the reaction to what had occurred, and they were really they were most interested in correcting me on such insignificant elements of your boss was out here earlier. Whoa, 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 whoa. That's
not
not
my
right.
boss.
It's like,
Yeah.
wait, let's get to the core of what the problem is here, not these stupid details that you want to keep on getting yourself out of trouble with.
Well, it's so indicative that these large city and maybe the small cities as well. I've not had any encounters with police in like Florence or when we surprise audited the Nashville Celebrity Center, which there's a live on my channel. You might not have seen where Sherry and I actually showed up in Nashville at the Celebrity Center there, in a very industrial area, which was very weird. But I've not encountered the police yet, so maybe I count myself lucky. But yeah, when it seems like you and some of the other squirrels that have had interactions with the police, it's as though the police want to do nothing more than cop splain to you, and then argue with you over semantics that have nothing at all to do with the issue at hand, and it just gets so frustrating. It's like who is who is who is training these people? Who is giving them, it's like the worst bedside manner that you could ever have as a cop is to just cop-splain everything away, to constantly contradict you about the law, contradict you about, the org chart for the police. You're going to get into an organizational chart conversation. I mean, in I'm not a lawyer, y'all, but I have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. But I do know that every law enforcement officer in a division, in a department, is imputed, that is a legal term, with all the knowledge of every other law enforcement officer. So whether or not my boss happens to be this sergeant, when I say your sergeant, you're imputed to have, that is a person within your rank somewhere. So why they would even want to sit there and argue with you about who's their boss, who's not their boss, just blows me away. And then for them to care more about the definition of marking, I mean, where's the common sense? What happened? And that was a sergeant. That was a gentleman, well into his years on the force, relatively high enough in rank. Where is the common sense that obviously chalk makes a temporary mark, but not a permanent mark?
Correct. Now, I was even more upset when a couple of the subscribers or the people that were in chat had called the police and said, "What happens if my child does hopscotch um, on the sidewalk?" And the
Mhm.
response was, "Well, that's a different context." It's like the law doesn't say anything about context. The law says if you deface or mark public property, so you either enforce it or you don't enforce it. You don't have the ability to say, well, if it's something I like, it's okay to mark it. But if it's something I don't like, it's not okay to mark it.
Exactly. I mean, the question alone, if what happens if my child draws hopscotch boxes? Well, no cop in their right mind would ever arrest a child for playing hopscotch on a chalk marking on the ground. And they might come and tell they might come and tell the parents or say, "Hey, you really shouldn't do this." But it's 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 so we seem to have lost the ability as a culture in the West to be common sense about things, to be realistic about things, to be like, chalk washes away. Chalk does not permanently mark anything. You've got sidewalk artists out there in these big cities painting or drawing murals and really cool 3D type imagery that is all temporary, and it's all going to go. And I guarantee you, there is no permit that you have to go get from City Hall to do that.
Right. There's
You
an
know,
art festival annually in Chicago that is exactly what you said. And uh, you know what? I should have gotten that. I have some rolls of film that show just this amazing museum quality art that's out there. And it's just beautiful to see. And you're right, that tragic element that says, and on the next thunderstorm, it's gone, right? It's an
yeah.
etch a sketch.
I mean, you see the pictures of these beautiful 3D chalk side artwork where, like, you don't want to step on it because you think you're going to fall through some kind of hole in the ground. And it's just a beautiful, but that doesn't stay. That doesn't stick. That's not spray paint. That's not brushed on paint. You're not tagging anything. You're literally just drawing words on the ground with a piece of chalk that just goes away. um, and I know I saw, that maybe the police are trying to de-escalate, but they're you weren't escalating to begin with in that situation. It was the DSA. And for those of you who don't know, the DSA stands for Director of Special Affairs. That is a permanent Sea Org member that is stationed at that org. That is their post. Every class 5 org, which is basically every org that isn't like LA or Clearwater, or there's an org in New York, and there's an org in Denmark, Copenhagen, Denmark. Any class 5 org, your just average everyday big org, ideal or not, is going to have a DSA, and it's a director of special affairs. That is the person that reports to the office of special affairs for their continental liaison office. And there's a continental liaison office in every continent. In the United States, there's two. There's one on the East Coast and there's one on the West Coast. And those people are in direct in direct communication with the dirty tricks department. And it was her that escalated.
Correct. Somebody mentioned today in, I think in my live, that when she said, "Are you a child?" or "Do you think you're a child?" or "What are you a child?" something to that effect. When she came out, it's like, no, I do not believe that I am a small human in in an adult body. Um, but again, the hindsight's 50-50.
Yeah, I mean,
I just want
you
to oh, sorry. I
uh,
just want to address something that John Strange had talked about before. I have known, so I'm a runner in Chicago. I've run many marathons around the world. In Chicago, I know a lot of the race directors, and the race directors will oftentimes have to mark the course so that runners know where to go. And historically, it's been that we use a chalk, and the chalk is arrowed. The race directors oftentimes get penalized that if they don't clean that off, they lose their security deposit. They have to put up a bond. I think it would be considered a bond at that point in time. They have to put forward a bond when they sponsor the race so that if anything bad happens, there's money in a bank for that. And one of the things that they would always get called on was if you don't clean up all the markings you made on the sidewalks and on the streets, that you have to do that. Now, those were, I said chalk earlier, those were permanent marks with paint. So they would hire friends to go out there and help them get that off there because they needed to get that money back in that space. But chalk, I've never seen a problem with that before.
it gets back to just common sense. Police officers have discretion on who they prosecute and who they don't prosecute to a point. Obviously, if they are in witness of a misdemeanor or a ordinance violation or a felony, they have to. But for someone to make a big deal about writing chalk on a piece of pavement or a piece of sidewalk over going out and answering, they have to answer a call. There, we get that. If they get a call, they have to answer it. But it could be just as quick as, oh, we're here on a call, nothing's going on, adios, we'll see you later. And we saw that. I think there was a video, MD Media 18, shout out to MD Media 18, had a video of a couple of police officers out there in LA showing up. The guy, the cop that walked up says, "We got a call. We see nothing's going on. Take care." They left. That's all there has to be. They gave their serial numbers, they gave their names, they gave an incident number. Adios, see you later. Y'all are great. Have a nice day. And it's as though that the Chicago Police Department is learning the same methods and tactics as the LA Police Department, and that is the saddest part.
Absolutely. I've had some secret. By the way, I've changed my mic to be automatically toned, so I saw that somebody had said they couldn't hear me. Hopefully, this is getting better. Um, the My early interactions with the police had been rather sane. I mean, that they've here's why we're here. You haven't done anything wrong. Carry on. Have a nice day. But it feels like there's a top-down push to say, stop being cordial
Right.
to the protesters. And I'll say that I'm becoming less cordial to the police, and I've said this from the beginning. I'll grant anybody respect who grants me respect. When you disrespect me, please don't expect me to respect you. Right?
Well, it's like you have to remember who, and we need to remind people who's the boss of the police department in that division.
Yep.
I mean,
Officer Harris or
that
Commander
is the
Harris.
Commander Harris. That is the same Commander Harris on opening day that was threatening to arrest everybody. And Danny, and shout out to Danny and Shannon and everybody that was there on opening day. So the orders have to be coming down from above, and uh, he's not exactly the most reputable police officer in the Chicago PD. He's got, I mean, Wendy, you've talked about on your channel, he's got a little bit of a controversial history.
Correct. When he came in, he was chastised is the easiest or the best way I'll say it right now. He overinflated the ability or his ability to reduce the crime in the first district. He, by the way, Church of Scientology is in the first district of Chicago Police, and he was called out and chastised for the idea that he had been inflating the numbers, or and we've seen that. I see that in a lot of like police shows. If you watch Blue Bloods or if you watch any of those larger shows, every once in a while, a captain of a district in Chicago they say commander, but it was the same as a captain in New York. They'll overinflate something and they'll get in trouble. They'll get the wrist slap for it. Unfortunately, it turns out that it's really just a wrist slap, and it's like, hey, please don't do that again. It's like, we're
Well,
controlling this district, right?
yeah, and what we're seeing in LA as well, we're seeing where and I think Poe on the Go in his live yesterday or this morning, I can't remember, was talking about the fact that you just can't get these cops punished well enough. There's just it's like, had the whole situation with Becky out in LA with the way that she was handled poorly out there, you know, it's like it's almost a job protection program now with some of these police officers. You can't actually get them removed. You can't get them really punished. Slaps on the wrist. And I love the police. I have nothing wrong with good police. It's like, but also we have to remember, y'all, all of us protesting out there, the Supreme Court of the United States has stated that the police do not have a duty to protect you. They have only a duty to uphold the law. So, I mean, there's always that. Don't think that just because there's a police officer around that they're gonna, if they're a bad police officer, they're gonna take care of you, because they don't have a duty to do that. They should morally and ethically, but
Yep. It's let's see, painful, not the right term. It's discouraging to be out there knowing that we grew up thinking the police would protect us, right? To serve and to
mm-hmm.
protect was what we would always hear. And that just isn't the way that it comes across these days. And what I hate more than anything about this is the idea that if the church was indigent and a victim, I could understand the police stepping in and trying to help
Exactly.
support that side. But they are a well-funded organization, and worse off, they don't pay to support the police forces.
Exactly.
So they're just consuming these resources that, on so last Sunday, 9 officers were there. 8 officers were there because of chalk. 9 officers were there because of chalk and tape. And there,
And then you had 2 for your assault.
Yes, 2 for my assault, 2 that just consistently said, "Not my fault. Let me cover my butt. Hey, that wasn't my problem. I didn't say that this happened before. I didn't say that people couldn't get in somebody's face. So stop doing that."
I think maybe you can. I think they're saying you might want to jack your
Yeah, I just
your
did it
mic
up
volume up.
again. Let me.
Yeah, we were having a little bit of microphone problems earlier, and we're trying to get with
Oh,
but maybe you know it just it befuddles me, because especially if you're someone that grew up with the iconic idea of a police officer and what a police officer is there to do. Whether you got the Andy Griffith style police officer idea, or the LA, just the facts, ma'am, kind of deal. If you grew up with that, it's just so weird and so heart wrenching to see police officers out there that just can't seem to be morally and ethically in line with taking care of the little of the downtrodden. But you got to remember, the cult safe points the police, and maybe they don't safe point Chicago PD like they do LA. I think LA is obviously the most corrupted police force when it comes to safe pointing. And for those of you in the chat that have never heard of that, safe pointing is a Scientology practice of donating money to charitable causes for the police, or paying the city for overtime to have police officers do security work for them, or ingratiate themselves with politicians who have direct access to the police officers. It's just a way of getting them on their side, so that when you have an incident on your property or with your organization, the the police that respond are more likely to side with you versus siding with the protesters or whatnot. And that's another thing, the idea that we're not getting the politicians on our side. Where are the politicians? Where are the local city leaders when it comes to we've had conversations. I know Aaron on with growing up in Scientology has talked about writing your congressman or your congresswoman, or because it's an election year. But to be honest with you, it's the local level politicians that are going to have the most direct effect on the police.
Yeah. By the way, I turned up my gain, so hopefully
Yeah, you sound good.
that
Yeah.
okay. That we have seen safe pointing explicitly. So Kwali Kwaza, he runs an organization called Club 21. He's a black influential influencer, maybe
Okay.
is the way to say it. Early on, maybe 2 weeks after the org opened, I was there at lunchtime, and he had come out and he was looking around. He had that searching look, and he found a white. Thanks, Michael. He found a white shirted. And by the way, when I say white shirt, I'm just saying supervised. So I don't know if there's some are sergeants, some are lieutenants, but white shirts are higher than officers. And he brought his friend in. I asked the guy, "Hey, can I have your name and badge number?" He said, "When I come out." He
I
didn't
remember
come out for
that.
90 minutes, right?
I remember that.
So they 100%. So this is interesting, right? That the Church of Scientology has now co-opted Kali Kwaza to then co-opt the police, right? So it's this level of separation that occurs that it's saddening and sickening to understand how well, and by the way, they're good at it. I need to learn how to get that good at. How do I get the police on my side in this situation?
It what's so funny though is they weren't always in Division 1. They were way out there in Division 50, I don't know what it was, way out
Yep.
there in the boons for the longest time. So the people that they're dealing with, the police officers that they're dealing with, are not the police officers that they were dealing with the whole time they've been in Chicago, right? I mean, so it's a new division that's actually responding. And yet I don't know what went on behind the scenes. They had the Blue Star folks there. Maybe the Blue Star people were, you know, interceding between Scientology and the police and saying, "Hey, you need to take care of the cult because the cult's gonna hire." I mean, I don't know if they can get hired for overtime duty or anything by private organizations, but it had to there. And then now Blue Star's gone because maybe the police have been co-opted enough to do the Blue Star work for them. I don't know. I don't. Well, you mean you had Sean? Yeah, you had Sean Ingalina pushing people off of private property that wasn't even his private property.
Yeah, that's what threw me a lot. So I am not a law enforcement officer, but I've seen them on TV.
You have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, though, right?
Yes, and that idea. What a couple of things I know. An agent of a property can expel you from the property.
Absolutely.
The police can expel you from the property if an agent of the property has given them a right to do so. At no point can a third party person say, "I'm acting on behalf of the agent to say these people shouldn't be
Right.
here."
And at no time did he produce any credentials that said he was an agent of the property. I mean, he was basically just treading on the fact that it was a high stress environment, a high stress activity. He had the police basically, and it was he was pretending to be somebody more important than he really was. And he had a cooperative police department. I mean, they arrested that older gentleman who was just trying to go to Dunkin' Donuts. And
Right.
again, where is the where is the discernment on the part of the police to take a minute and ask questions, talk, escort somebody when the police could have easily said, "Okay, escort this gentleman to the Dunkin' Donuts, no big deal." That's not what they did.
Right.
I mean, that's the befuddlement that I have, is that there's no humanity in these police officers. We know there's no humanity in the cult. That is clearly, but police officers are, I mean, they might be a cult in and of themselves. We're not going to get into that, but there's no humanity inside the police department to just take care, even putting aside there being police officers, they're still human beings. They're still citizens of the community. Put themselves in the position of the gentleman trying to go to Dunkin' Donuts. Wouldn't you want to just be able to go to Dunkin' Donuts, especially if you're a 70 or 80 or 90-year-old person that has a routine that might have, you never know if they've got any kind of developmental issues or mental health issues or whatever. And so you keep people on, people on a plan or a routine is part of their health process. And if that was that gentleman's way of maintaining his routine, and then all of a sudden, of course, he's going to be upset. You know, he might have been going to Dunkin' Donuts for the past 20 years.
Yeah, it definitely felt like that was routine for him in that space. Now, one thing I want to say is that, not to disclose names or anything like that, but we have been in contact with the gentleman and with his family. He no longer lives or resides in that area. It's no longer a concern that he has to be there. He thought it was, let's say, humorous about the whole thing that happened. So he had a very good spirit about what occurred,
After
even
the
though he
fact.
was
Yeah.
absolutely violated, right? The idea that he was 100% violated on that day. And I just like that he said, he had made mention to one of the other Chicago protesters that he no longer visits that Dunkin' Donuts.
And see, that's the sad thing, because that's what the cult does. Wherever they move into, they push people out. I mean, look at Clearwater. They pushed everybody out of there. It's almost a good thing for us that the cult basically buys abandoned buildings in the middle of nowhere. It's just sad that they bought this building in the middle of a very busy, beautiful area of Chicago. I mean, they lucked out big time. I know you and I have talked about how they lucked out with that building, but
Right.
it's a good thing. Like when you think about the orgs that you visited out in California, there in was it Silicon Valley and elsewhere, those orgs are just off the beaten path, right? They're in the middle of nothing. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. But unfortunately, Chicago and Portland, although I mean Portland gets a fair amount of foot traffic, but you know the org up in Florence, I mean, it doesn't get any foot traffic. That's one of the busiest streets in that city and of car traffic, you know.
Right.
So, uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the Los Gatos, the building looked nice. There was, I'm going to say again, California is a car culture, so people drive, right? People
yep.
don't walk. Um, but that California location, I definitely saw people in the Los Gatos space before they pulled the blinds, and I mean they pulled every blind. There were blinds that only showed 1 foot of space in the front of that building where no people were at, and they pulled every single blind they could when they were out there. Now, when we went
See,
to Silicon Valley, we were there before the start of business. So
and I mean that is another thing. Can you imagine Hubbard would be rolling? I mean, Hubbard should be back from Target 2 just over that alone. For them to go hiding, to hide Scientology from the world is a suppressive act of the is treasonous. It is the most treasonous to hide yourself away, to obfuscate directly. Now they obfuscate, they hide themselves indirectly. They create shell companies, and they have special programs and stuff. But to take your beautiful ideal orgs and basically have to close the windows and close the doors, and you're never supposed to lock a door during when that org is open, it is treasonous. It is a high crime to lock an org down during business hours. And it's yet you have to remember who's in charge. David Miscavige is in charge. And David Miscavige has completely destroyed L. Ron Hubbard. Not that I'm an L. Ron Hubbard fan by any stretch of the imagination, but he has even gone way off the deep end with what he's doing to. I mean, I don't know where the directive came down, but you saw the videos out there in LA with the Dianetics event, and you saw them putting up, more shrub tech and more. It's just like, how do you even think you're going to get more people in if you just
Yeah.
make yourself that much more hidden away?
It it boggles my mind. And again, retail says location, 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 and you have the location, and you have to hide. Which,
That's written into policy. Retail
yeah,
location, location, location is quoted in policy from Hubbard.
no doubt about it, and it makes perfect sense. By the way, it's another thing that Hubbard usurped, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hubbard didn't have an original thought in his entire mind. Everything he took was from somebody else. He just repackaged it.
Yep. Now, I had mentioned this on the live this morning that I use the word pride, and I use I a lot, and let's get past that if we could. But I love the fact that I show up and they close their retail location. That it. I've had a bunch of negative commentary in some of the comments. What right do you have to be there, and all that kind of stuff? And it's like, hey, F you. I love
Right.
the fact that that anybody who's there and puts a camera in their face and pulls those blinds down, you're making an effect, because the neighborhood looks at it and goes, "Why are they hiding?" That
Well, see,
when these neighbors come to me and say, "What's going on there? Why are they pulling the blinds?" It troubles the people that might be curious enough to go into that organization.
well, in Scientology, you want to be cause over effect. But essentially, we are cause over their effect. We are causing them to close the blinds. We are causing them to close the doors. We are causing them to fight, to go on the offensive. We have become cause over their effect. And that is never what you're supposed to be in Scientology. Only on the rarest, and the never ends, like, in the chat, can correct me, of course, because I'm not a Scientologist, but I think I know enough that says that you always want to be cause over matter, energy, space, and time. You always want to be the cause of effect. You always want to be in cause over everything that you do. And they are nothing. They are effect over everything. They are constantly affected by us. And again, that's not what Hubbard in his crazy writings wrote.
Right. That the one of the things that I think is awesome is, right, William Good, what are we at? 18 months right now, somewhere in
Yeah,
that range.
since what, no, October?
Oh, it's not even,
No,
so it's 8 months.
or was it the summer? It was cooler weather. I think it might have been October, maybe September. I can't remember.
Yeah. But they pulled in an enemy. So
Hmm.
effing idiots, right? In that regard. But the idea that they pulled him in, and then Jessica shows up, and then we start seeing Chris and LA Cam and so many other people, and the idea that their testing center, that has to be the number one retail location that they've ever had, and it is absolutely ineffective right now.
I,
And they think the protests are going away, and they're just not.
I've heard Aaron say it, state on his channel time after time after time, that is the number one recruiting post for all of Scientology, for getting new people into the org, outside of individual field staff members, which are any Scientologist out and about in the world that brings somebody in to do courses or to take auditing or whatever, outside of like a word of mouth kind of deal or knowing somebody, that is the most effective direct recruitment that they've ever had. And it is, I mean, I was just watching Mindy Willen's stream. She was standing outside that location, and it's continued to be shut down. Yeah, I mean, and there was talk back in the beginning of the year that they had new tech, that they had all these new cameras set up. So what's going on? Why haven't they opened up? I think I know
Right.
why. They don't have the staff. They have deployed all their Sea Org extra Sea Org resources to all these orgs to try and get them open for David Miscavige to get him in before Hubbard's birthday and before the Dianetics stuff and everything. So he's stripped himself thin with Sea Org members. And you have to remember, these Class 5 orgs are not supposed to be staffed by Sea Org members. The only Sea Org members that are supposed to be there generally is your director of special affairs, your treasury. Typically, there's, I think, the treasury person, and no one you could certainly correct me, but that person is typically a Sea Org person. Other than that, they're supposed to be contracted 2.5 or 5 year staff members that are manning those. And if we remember correctly, Columbus, Ohio, is still staffed by all Sea Org members. Catherine Olson, who fled from there back during COVID, she was sent there as a Sea Org member. So he doesn't have the people to run it. That's what
Right.
that's. I mean, that you see the cameras, you see the new the speaker systems, and and why isn't it open?
Right.
Could also be that they're afraid to death of streets and the other squirrels.
Yeah. Streets is courage. Absolutely amazing. So that's really, really impressive. And yeah, he's an intimidating person. So I love that. Um, Now, one thing that I can't tell you is who the OSA people are, and there probably are still. The best way I'll say it is Surge. I said OSA. I meant Sea Org. Sorry. There are probably still Surge Sea Org people in Chicago just
Missionaires.
to make sure that we can get the staff up to the point that it needs to be before they can be sent home. I'm pretty confident that everybody's been told take your GD Sea Org pins off
Oh yeah.
because we can't let people know who's staff and who's not right now.
I mean, those are called missionaires, and there probably are still missionaires there. I don't know that they're ever not going to be missionaires there, but again, they're more hiding. They're less prideful about who they are if they got to take their rank pins off. But the reason is they don't want anybody identifying them, which, I mean, frankly, we can do. We've identified them, they've identified us, and it goes both ways. But so just own up to it. I mean,
Yeah.
if 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 you're so afraid of being identified or having your people identified, but these people don't want to leave the Sea Org. I mean, most of the time, if I don't know if anybody in the chat or has, or if you've ever listened to or read where the back in the early 80s, the Hemet, the gold base, the international base was actually, or I'm sorry, flag was actually raided by the FBI in 77 as part of the Operation Snow White prosecution, and not a single person uh, wanted to leave. Not a single person wanted to go be with the FBI and go turncoat. They were all so indoctrinated. And I'm reading Jesse Prince's book, and he talks about his time at Flag and his time um, at the Int base. And you're there unless you're ready to blow, unless you're ready to escape. You're there by choice. You've been indoctrinated. You've been brainwashed into wanting to stay. So why be so afraid if a Sea Org member is identified in LA or in Chicago? They're still not probably going to leave. I mean, maybe I'm oversimplifying it. Maybe as a never in, I'll never really truly know.
Yeah. I want to hit on something that no one just put up there, right? The idea that, and I'll show it again. that right they should be recruiting the replacements. And I've said this so many times. I don't think that I have the capacity or the ability to pull
Oh
a
yeah.
member out of the organization. But what I do think I have the ability to do is be mobile enough that I can thwart their efforts to recruit raw meat. And I hate the term raw meat. I just think it's such a diminutive element. Um, the
It's better than the W word, so we're not
yes,
gonna say the W word.
but I absolutely know that I've made a difference and I have turned people away from that org. And as I thwart their efforts to recruit, it costs the org more money to pay the Sea Org staff to be in there. The Sea Org staff are probably getting a little bit disappointed by why can't I go home yet in these situations. I've the body router that I see the most, right? The thin person of color with the dark curly hair. Um, he reacted the other day. Now he's reacted a couple of times in a dejected manner. So he'll see me in the alley when he thinks he can sneak by, and he'll just drop his head. And again, I giggle and I chuckle about that, and I probably have too much pride about it. But the other day, when I left the stream on Sunday night, I went to the train station, and he was down there, and I caught him. And he, unfortunately, I'd already put the camera away. I think he knew that I didn't put the camera away, and he gave me the finger, which was the first time that
Oh,
he
his
really showed a
TRs were out.
frustrated, yeah, his, the idea that we've frustrated them. And I love that I'm penetrating that we can't be bull baited BS element.
I mean, he's gone below 2.0 on the tone scale. He's
Yeah.
angry now. And he's let his TRs out. I was gonna say, the problem we have with the Sea Org members is they're gonna get shuffled around. They're gonna get human trafficked wherever. And the staff members are the ones that should be upset because their pay, their donation, their religious donation that they get is based on a pool. Basically, it's a percentage of the take of the org for the week, and then that's also a percentage based on whether you're upstat or downstat. So you're cutting into their stats. All the squirrels are cutting into their recruitment stats, cutting into their bodies in the shop stats, cutting in on their good auditing hours, all that stuff. It's the staff that are really the Sea Org's going to get paid $50 before taxes every week, pretty much. Um, I mean, I guess it's not 100% because David Miscavige has been known to like not pay people for years on end, but they should be getting $50 before taxes a week, or 50 pounds if you're over in the UK. But it's the staff, it's the 2.5 year contract people and the 5 year contract, because every non-Scientology, non-Sea Org member who works in the org signs one of those two contracts, and they only get paid a percentage of the take of that org. And if we're cutting into their stats, they're the ones that should be pissed off because they then have to go work a full-time job somewhere else. The problem with Chicago, sorry, the problem with Chicago is you've got that Dream Company or whatever,
Dream Exchange.
Dream Exchange, propping a lot of those staff members up. So he's probably allowing those, he's giving some kind of an exchange, essentially stating, you go work in the org, you go fight for the org, and I'll pay you a better wage to keep the org going. That's the exchange he's probably made, because Scientologists have to be in exchange. They have this concept of you don't get anything for free. You get what you give, and what you get has to be commensurate with what you get, or you want to be. You don't want to ever be out exchange where you're getting more for what you're giving. So my guess is organizations like Dream Exchange, who the owner is a Scientologist. Is he OT, isn't he?
Yeah. One
Yeah.
second. I'm going to see if I can bring that up. He, yeah, he's definitely,
He was a big donor,
uh,
right?
yeah. So sorry, let me see. Why can't I command plus? There
There
we
you
go.
go.
So as we look here, the person on the top left is Joe Sakala Jr. He is the principal founder of Dream Exchange. We actually know since then that more of these people are Scientologists than I even knew 2 months
Wow.
ago when I put this out. But we're seeing what 9 Scientologists of their
Hmm.
leadership staff, and this doesn't include Joe Sakala Jr. It doesn't include Chad Olson. It doesn't include Jessica Kudwitz. It doesn't include Crystal Ehrlich, I think is that name. So, yeah, that these these public organizations are really funding the organization, right?
Well, you know that probably I could see Miscavige or Osa getting on the horn with getting on the telex and communicating with the DSA there in Chicago. Hey, get this guy who runs this company to pay these people, or I don't know, get their butts in the org, fight for this org, fight for keep those squirrels at bay, get rid of those squirrels, get this interbulation down, and I can just see that he's propping them up. So, and he's probably, I wouldn't doubt that he's probably donated extra money to keep a Sea Org mission out there a little bit longer. Not that the Sea Org members themselves are getting any benefit of that. Not really that the stat or the staff is getting any financial benefit. So I think was it I saw Michael Andrus says Church of Scientology is out exchange with all Sea Org. Church of Scientology is out exchange with everybody. Everybody. They're out exchange with the Sea Org. They're out exchange with the staff. They're out exchange with the public. They're out exchange with the normies and the never ends, the taxpayer. For the there is there is no taxes being paid in Chicago from the Church of Scientology. No book sales are getting no. There's no taxes on those. There's no taxes coming out from auditing, from services, from coursework. You know, uh, the only time that Scientology pays taxes on anything is if they run a hotel like they do in Clearwater. So the beds are taxed, the rooms are taxed, the restaurants in the hotels are taxed. Other than that, that's it, you know. So
Dave, so out exchange, I know what it means, but there's this idea that there's a bartering system that basically happens, right?
so essentially, you know, ideally out exchange could mean anything from whether it's a bartering exchange of an exchange. So you can exchange labor for labor, you can exchange labor for goods, you can exchange money for services, you can exchange services for money. It's the perception on both parties inside Scientology that what I'm getting is commensurate with what I gave. Now, not everybody can give money. So the Sea Org members, their level of exchange, and no one please feel, or any of the ex-Scientologists, please feel free to correct me, but there's a whole pamphlet I've got actually in the back, and I really should pull it out because it talks about exchange. There's just this concept that everything Hubbard was a fanatical capitalist. Now, we're not going to get into a discussion. I don't want to get into a discussion about the different types of economics, but he took it to a level that should never, he took away charity and sympathy out of Church of Scientology. And that, you know, everything you do, everything that you receive should be commensurate with everything that you do or give. So you can give money, you could give time, you could give labor, you could be handing out pamphlets of the way to happiness pamphlets, you could be out walking around with the staff members handing out tickets to a free Dianetics movie. You could be sending emails, writing letters. Yeah, even children are supposed to be in exchange with their parents. You can hear if you ever watch Relatable Reese talk about her relationship with her father and how he was super into the concept of exchange, even with his children, especially her. And to be out exchange puts you into a lower tone scale, a lower condition, and you're supposed to work towards getting up that condition, which means you have to give more to get back in exchange. And uh, so the idea that it could be very easy. Maybe this guy that runs Dream Exchange has been told, hey, you want to keep, you don't want to have to pay more money to go get more auditing to get sec checked or to avoid sec checking, or you don't, that maybe he was threatened with potentially some of his employees, or so maybe he's propping the org up, maybe he's propping this. I don't know. This is all allegations. This is all just academic thought. Um, Cleaning, yeah, no one's talking about cleaning. Uh, Doing Div 6 stuff, which is the body routing, doing letter writing campaigns or email campaigns or cold calling, or uh, showing up with the Dianetics table, which I haven't seen them do much Dianetics tables, which is kind of crazy. I would have thought they would have had more Dianetics tables out there in Chicago. But yeah, there's all manner of exchange. It's just someone has to decide who's in and out exchange, and you never want to be out exchange.
Yep. So in regards to the Dianetics tables, um, we have seen in years past they would be out in Grant Park with that. So it is something I'm trying to develop a network of people who will let me know when they see card tables or people leaving the org with boxes, because that's that indicator that says they're going to go find a place to set up and pitch their snake oil.
It just, I would have thought Aaron hypothesized after the Austin opening, I think it was, where it's either I think it was the Austin open. Was it the Austin opening or was it the Chicago opening? I can't remember. That when they were they were firing back all the command teams, that you would see this massive Div 6 push. Basically, Div 6 in Scientology is the dissemination. That is the body routers. That's the ticketing people. That's the, the getting the new people in. And there'd be that's the people with the Dianetics tables and the e-meters out. And it so yeah, I've got this. So I don't know if I don't know if I have the ability to. No, I can't add another. I've got this little pamphlet. It's called Money and Exchange by L. Ron Hubbard. And it's just a little excerpt from some of his policies and whatnot. And this was published in 2007, and it's a WISE, World Institute of Scientologists Enterprises. So it's written for non-Scientologists, but there's a whole section on exchange. And after you get past what is money, as if we don't know what money is, there's this whole section on exchange. And I would not be surprised that the whales out there are the ones propping up these orgs. I mean, I think no one corrected me, is the public div. Yeah. So Disem is div 2, right? Or is that div 2 is dissemination.
Yeah. So, and this is I know that this is going to occur in Chicago. What auditing Scientology is talking to right now. That there's just too many great targets not for that not to occur. Now, what I don't understand is, so the people that are body routers, and I'm going to be an ignorant person not knowing how the org is structured, that people have different hats in that org, and I feel like body routing might be one of the lower tiers of a post to be able to hold in the org. So the idea that if they can't recruit, they're not being able to get a lot of those people out there, because I'm really only seeing maybe 6 to 7 different people, and really I'm only seeing 2 or 3 people do it consistently in that space.
Well, so when a new person joins staff, when they come into Scientology and they join staff, they go through their staff hatting process, where they go through staff 0, 1, and 2. At any point, they're typically, and I think they're typically made what are called expediters. And expediters are basically a warm body that you can throw into almost any position, regardless of where they are, and they just go do, whether that's running paper or maybe that is handing out tickets. It is a very low post to have, and it is probably one of the easiest. But the problem we run into is the if you get someone in that hat that's not very personable or that can't communicate effectively, and you got to remember, they're only allowed to lie, okay? They're not allowed to tell you what Scientology is because that would be verbal tech, okay? And verbal tech is not allowed in Scientology. Um, so they have to basically lie and tell you that it's all these things that it's not, that uh, it's not a cult. It's not a, it's a practical philosophy for life, or they have to uh, give 9/10 of the, so if someone's not very good at that, I wouldn't put them in that hat. I wouldn't, but again, Scientology's not very good at putting the right person in the right job to get the right thing done. I mean, they're just not, and they're very reactive. Scientology planning doesn't really exist, and that goes back to the way that they manage their stats. And they do a week over week stat management, or a month over month if you're at the higher levels, or a quarter over a quarter. And when you operate that way, you just can't plan. You can't really do good planning. We've seen some of the handwritten planning, what they call battle plans. We've seen some of that with Trashy's dumpster diving, his awesome dumpster diving, and then also Pearl Snappy down there in Austin doing her dumpster diving and whatnot. So we know it's haphazard. It's just not very good.
Yeah. Darn, you had said something and it tickled something in my mind, and now I'm stuck. Um, oh, it feels like beggars can't be choosy, right? So that idea that you said, we want the best looking, we want the most personable, we want the most, but I think that they're at the bottom of the barrel, and it's like we need somebody out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're because we're crushing their stats. You guys are crushing their stats. So they're sending out people, they're sending out multilingual people now. They're sending out ESL people. They're sending out persons of color. They're sending out very good looking people. But again, one body is only capable of affecting maybe one to maybe a couple of people at a time. And when you've got us squirrels out there chasing them off, and you're crushing their stats. You guys that are out there every day. I was going to say something earlier about, it's like I feel like we've got two fronts going on here with SPTV and the SPTV universe and whatnot. We've got the armada of people out there protesting and auditing, and you are accomplishing the prevention of expansion. You're preventing them recruiting. You're not there to try and get people out. There's just no way. I think every story I've ever heard, and I'm going to paraphrase myself, but every story I've heard of somebody blowing or escaping the cult hasn't been from a protester standing on the side of the road or side of an org. It's been from them doing their own investigative work on Google, or doing their own investigative work on the news, or watching a DVD, or reading a Kindle like Ron Miscavige Sr. did, and seeing the news and whatnot. So it's like we've got you out there with Corn. Shout out to Corn Freak DBSC in the chat, and Nance and Shannon and Trashy and SRA and everybody out there, and Israel. And you've got you guys and of course all the other squirrels that are basically preventing. You're the front line of defense against keeping people from getting indoctrinated into the cult. And then I kind of feel like we've got me and some of the other people that can't get to the orgs, and we're trying to do content, and I think it's our content that might impact the existing members a little bit more and getting them out, because it's our content that they may see also they're going to see the protesting too. But I like the fact that we've got these multiple fronts, because we can get to the ones that are in the cult and get them out. It has happened. It happens apparently a lot more frequently than we're ever going to know, because it takes a long time for, you know, survivors of the cult to even come forward that they've left. And
Right.
shout out to all the under the radars out there. We love you and we want you to eventually be free. So
100%. Right. That idea that um, I know that I can sometimes be harsh. Now, I tend not to be harsh on the more senior members of the staff, but and I don't really yell or anything of that nature. But I know that I'm confronting the people that are coming to the front door of that org, asking questions, which are right that why can't women report crimes against them when they're committed by a member of the church? Tell me anything good about this church. That they're being told inside, I'm Satan,
right.
but I don't think that I'm portraying myself as Satan by asking such innocent questions on the street. And at some point, they're going to internalize those. My hope is they're going to internalize those questions and say, maybe he's got a point.
Well, I mean, it's just like I have a whole series that I've started on brainwashing and how the cult brainwashes people. And one of the recurring themes in a lot of the videos that I've done, where I've gone over the documents and the books in Scientology, is this concept of repetition. And by constantly repeating the same questions over the whole process of auditing, the whole process of uh, asking all these questions to people that are holding the cans or not holding the cans, is designed to tear away at your critical thinking skills and to beat into you a certain thing. And it's just like the normie phrase that tells somebody a lie long enough and they'll believe it to be true. That's what's going to happen, and that's probably it's what I think is good about the protesters now. I'm not out there protesting as much as I'd love to, but you asking the same question over and over and over again, I think is a great idea, because you're using the cult's own tactics against them. If you change it up too much, then you don't come across as having a coherent message to the cult. But if protesters are out there always asking the same question of the members of the cult, you are more likely to chip away at the brainwashing that they've been dealt with, and you might get them at some point to start questioning and start having a critical thought, and then hopefully get them to start doing their own investigation by going on to YouTube or going on to TikTok or going on to whatever source of information they get. And I think that's a great tactic of yours, asking that same question over and over and over again. Even though you don't feel like you really get much response, you just don't know what they're internalizing.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll remind the audience that many times I'll ask this question intentionally in earshot of a civilian so that the civilian is hearing me ask these questions and not hearing a response. The civilian is now getting this idea that says, that's kind of ooky.
It's two
What the
birds
hell's
with
going
one
on there?
stone, right?
Right. So there are times where I've said before, my intention isn't always to penetrate the staff member. It's sometimes to be, they give me the platform to make the neighborhood aware of what's going on in that space.
And nobody can be expected to win at getting everybody out. I mean, we just have to keep fighting the battle. Now, the bringing of the cult down, bringing of the corporate Scientology organization is really the ultimate goal. Whether or not, and I've stated this on my channel, I don't care if you want to believe in Hubbard's technology. If you are a consenting adult, you're not being pressured into it, you're not a child, you're not being forced into it, you're not being coerced into believing it, fine. Believe it all you want. You can believe in the spaghetti monster, you can believe in whatever you want. Um, I don't think children should ever be forced into that cult. I don't think elders should be forced to continually work on staff. It's just like that gentleman that Aaron, I mean, you've seen plenty of, you've had great interactions with elderly in the cult. But even having that guy that Aaron and Serge were watching pressure wash the cafeteria or the out there in LA yesterday, it's like these older staff members and Sea Org members are doing all this manual labor. You know, that's awful. That's horrible. These people should be retiring. These people should be living at the least. They should have access to their Social Security benefits and trying to live out the rest of their lives. But again, the belief in Scientology is that this is just one life out of millions that you've had before. You're just going to eventually drop this body, go pick up, go. If you're a Scientologist, OT Scientologist or clear, you're going to be able to bypass the implant station and come back and pick your next baby body. But so it doesn't really matter. But see, that's the sad thing. It devalues life. It just devalues life, and that's where I can't. And so criminality and the devaluation of life is where I really just can't.
Yeah, I'm wholeheartedly there. That the idea that I, yeah, um, Christians have a belief, and that belief is not overly science based, but it's a belief. And I have no issue with anybody that has that belief. I held that belief at a point in my life. That all of the major religions of the world, they have a belief. And those beliefs have a bit of fantasy in them. And it's however you want to do it. But to your point, as a consenting adult, I have no issue with what you believe in. Like independent Scientology makes perfectly good sense to me. You think this technology works?
Oh, did we
Do
lose
it
you?
until you're blue in the face. Oh, did I low? How am I doing?
No.
Can you hear me? Can you
I
hear me?
lost you for a second. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. But the criminal activities, and it's not really even the idea that the crimes of the church are terrible, but the idea that the church co-opts its members into continually committing these same crimes, again, that repetitive forced indoctrination into this slavery or cultic behavior, I can't stand it. That's not something that I'm willing to let anybody else fall prey to.
I mean, I've never been shy about the fact that I do believe in, and I am a Christian and I do believe
Right.
in Christ, but that is my personal,
Mhm.
and for sure the Christian faith has gone through a much turmoil over the centuries or the millennia that it's been around. So I'm not faulting, I'm not giving it a 100% pass. Excuse me, goodness. But the mainstream religions for the most part have at least evolved enough to, for the most part, I'm not going to say 100%, because there are sects within the Christian faith that are very much into shunning and disconnecting families and withholding medical treatment and impressing upon their members a moral code that is ridiculous. I'm not going to name any names, but at least to the mainstream, it has evolved into a human life, um, humanity. It believes in human life. You have a cult here that has no regard for life. It believes you're this immortal Thetan. That is the only thing it cares about, and the Sea Org reserves. That is all it matters, is the amount of money in the Sea Org reserves and the square footage of the church. And I've seen some documents that show the square footage of the churches, the buildings, and has no regard for life, because you're just an immortal Thetan that's lived over and over and over for millennia, and a body is a meat body. That's all you are, is a meat body. In fact, the idea is you as a Thetan are not supposed to inhabit your body. You're actually supposed to be 3 feet behind your body, controlling it. And that's the extroversion. You want to be extroverted from your body. And when we're in our bodies and when we're acting like our bodies are the most important thing to Scientology, that's called introversion. And that's not a good thing to Scientologists. But in every other religion, the body does matter.
Right.
The life does matter. The human being. Because what's the point otherwise? I mean, whether we're on a prison planet or not, we still want to have a decent human life here, to love people. Human beings are fanciful. We do have inventive and creative and fantastical minds, and thank goodness Hubbard himself lived in fantasy and science fiction in westerns. He himself believed he was an explorer from, and all this other stuff. So for the cult to basically deny that part of humanity and just want you to work and produce until you die is disgusting. And to indoctrinate children into such a philosophy is the utter most disgusting thing.
Yeah. You know, no one's putting up
Yeah.
precisely what we're kind of talking about, this idea that it devalues life. And yeah, I said fantasy before, and I would say that maybe it's closer to fiction, that most mainstream religions are anchored in some form of reality that existed on this planet.
Right. Right. I mean, there's the idea in the Christian in the Christian faith of a heaven and a hell and an existence beyond this life. And then there's other faiths have reincarnation, but again, they believe that how you live your life and how you affect others in this life, you generate karma, right? You generate a bank of karma that then when you come into the next life back on this planet, you live a better life and you continue to pass on that karma. Scientology doesn't believe in karma. Scientology believes that production and faith or adherence to the principles of L. Ron Hubbard is the most important thing, and that nothing else really matters. So what's the point?
Right.
But again, believe what you want to believe. You know, it's the
And
corporate entity that I just have the biggest problem with.
yeah, there. So I had a comment today, and I won't be able to find it, but something. What gives me the authority to tell these people that what they're doing is wrong? And one thing I want to just express to all of you: I have never told any Scientologist that what they're doing is wrong. I have asked them questions so that they will internally ask that of themselves. I do make contact with every, I use the term victim, and I think the word victim is correct, that
But
every
it's the
person
worst
that
thing to be
receives a
called.
flyer, yeah, the person that receives the flyer, yeah, I want to make contact with them because they've gotten deceptive propaganda and I want them to understand what they just received. So I do think that I am out there protecting a community against a predatory organization that is deceptive in its practices and makes you think that everything's okay, but when they draw you in, you're going to get pulled in and you're not going to realize you're going to be the boiling frog.
I mean, they are gonna love bomb you just like every other cult has ever done. I mean, the I was watching Nora's recollection of her Portland trip where she was on that cult panel, and she was going over this cult diagram, this diagram of what cults are and everything. And it was like she was getting so traumatized by it because everything on there, she could say, Scientology does this, Scientology does this, Scientology does this, Scientology does this. They followed the same exact thing that every other cult that has ever been known to mankind, and it's not just modern era stuff. We're talking back probably since the dawn of man, whether you want to go back to, early Judeo cults or early Christian cults or early Gnostics or whatever. There's always the same process in the human behavior of indoctrination, and it starts with love bombing. It starts with the telling you all these fallacies about you and about them, and then it gets you long enough into it to where suddenly you've invested your time, your effort, and maybe some of your money into, and then you're stuck. You're caught in this uh lost what is the sunk cost fallacy, right? Where you've now, whether that's a financial or a personal thing, and then maybe you've in the process while you were still being love bombed, maybe you got your child into it, maybe you got your mother or your brother or your sister into it, and you've hooked them, and then suddenly all now they've got you by by the family, right? Now they've got you, and then you're stuck. And then unless you're
Yep.
brave enough to, I just feel for those people because they may not want to be there, and yet they are, for fear of losing their families, for fear of losing their friends, for fear of losing their job, for fear of losing their entire social network. Is hard. I mean, I can't say that I've ever had to deal with it, so I don't know. I was never in a cult, but I have stayed at a Holiday Inn Express.
Nice. Uh, Natalie is one of those examples that I really love. Is that she decided she wanted out, and she knew she wanted out. It took her 2 years to put all of the parts in place to make sure that she could secure her family's exit in that element, right? That
She
idea
got
that
real lucky. I
yeah,
mean, there are lots of ex-Scientologists today that, I mean, they are alone in the world, and even some of the, or they've got children stuck in, or they've got family members that are just completely, even some of the ones that we know very well that um, still have family and friends that are stuck. And it I would say Natalie's case is probably one of the rarer, they're one of the exceptions, and it's awesome that she was so successful. But I mean, the Mike Renders of the world still has his adult children are still in, and the Headleys still have family in, and Aaron still has family in. It's just so sad that this is why you and I do what we do. This is why all the squirrels do what we do. We're not out here. These are not our jobs. I mean, these are not what pays the bills. These are what, and it's hard, I don't know about you, but I'm just going to it's hard to tell my family sometimes. I mean, all my family knows I do this, but it's often hard to explain to people that have no understanding of what a cult is, what really we're out here doing, and
right.
it's sad. I wish there were more. Maybe that's why there's no politicians out there fighting the good fight right now. Is they're just either they're unwilling to lose their seat of power, or they just don't understand.
Right. And that the what is the people that they know the word cult, or they know the kind of the definition of cult. Well, shame on anybody who's so stupid, right? And that's the mistake that most people make, is this idea that it is not a hard pit to fall into, right?
No,
You talked about earlier that love bombing. I belong. Who doesn't want to belong? Who doesn't want that idealistic, we're the only people that can save the world, right? That the stupid Tom Cruise, when an accident occurs, we know that we're the only
we're
ones
the
that
only
can be
ones that
there
can
to
help.
help in that space. Well, thank God the EMS doesn't understand that. So,
I I think that, unfortunately, when you say the word cult, people think of Jonestown, or they think of the more hyped up, destructive, at least, even though Scientology is the most, just one of the most destructive, but it's one of the most insidious. But they think about the Jonestowns. They think about the what was it, the space ones, the Heaven's
I know
Gate
what you're talking about.
people.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, my Sherry's in the other room here, and she just told me. She also made a great comment earlier in the chat about a Chicago, one of the Chicago politicians that was speaking there talked about the fact that she has Dianetics on her shelf. Um, but it's easy for people to, when you say the word cult, it's easy for them to go to those hyper crazy, hyper, just fantastical things. Unfortunately, the Church of Scientology has been cloaked in this charity, this tax exemption status. And one of the things that people need to realize, if they don't already, and I know a lot of people in our chat probably already know this, but the United States government does not recognize a church. It does not define what a church is in law. It only defines what a charity is. And it lops churches generically into that. So there is no, when you walk up to a Scientologist and you say, they tell you, but we're a church. The government, the United States government calls us a church. No, the United States government, the IRS gives you tax exempt status. That is all they confer upon you. And it's just unfortunate that they're able to cloak themselves in that, and then they obfuscate, just like everything else. They gaslight you into believing that they're a that the government of the United States says we're a church. So why don't you think that we're a church? And yet every practice that they have is entirely antithetical to what churches were. Even going back to the Middle Ages, when the Christian church was, doing its when it was in its heyday of crimes against humanity, at least it had a charity organization. At least it had alms for the poor. Scientology doesn't even have alms for the poor. Scientology hands out water bottles and books and the way to happiness pamphlets. That's all it does charity wise.
Yep.
And it does touch assists if you're lucky.
Now, you kind of said they hand these things out. Now, how does the Church of Scientology come by these way to happiness pamphlets, and how do they come by the water?
That is because Scientologists pay for it.
Yep.
So the cult members themselves, especially the whales, or even the more able of, remember, Scientology is only there to make the able more able. So the able is defined as either you can pay or you can labor. So what that does is it's got this giant dissemination printing warehouse out in California called Bridge Publications, and they print these 3-cent pamphlets, way to happiness pamphlets, truth about drugs, crimes against human, CCHR, Citizens Commission on Human Rights, crimes, psychiatrist or criminal type stuff. These pamphlets, these wise pamphlets, although these are much older, but it's stuff like this. It's these little bitty that when you break it down cost them a penny maybe. But
Dave, you're in charge. You're in charge for a minute and a half. I'm going to go downstairs and go find all my flyers. I'll be right back up.
yeah, absolutely. So what they do is they have a warehouse, or they've got a big old building somewhere in L. Ron Hubbard area, somewhere in Hollywood, where they print pamphlets like this for pennies on the dollar, but they turn around and they sell them in bulk to members. So they sell them like $5 a pamphlet, and then they don't discount them, and they sell them in big stacks of 10 and 20 and 30 and 40. And then they make you either donate that stack to an org, or they make you go hand them out if you're on some ethics program, and they send you out to Portland, Oregon, or they send you out to Hollywood Boulevard, or they send you out to Columbia, and they claim that by handing out pamphlets like these, your cause over effect over whatever crimes are going on or whatever. So nothing is free. Again, concept of exchange in Scientology, nothing is free. Someone paid for something. If there's t-shirts that you see them wearing, volunteer minister t-shirts, somebody in the church, some member somewhere paid to have those made, or you paid for them yourself. If you see bottles of water, well, somebody paid for those bottles of water. If you see pamphlets being handed out, somebody paid for those. There's no charity. There's no sympathy. That's out exchange. So it's and oftentimes the people that are paying for this are people that are under some kind of ethics program where they have done something wrong. They've sinned against the church, quote unquote, and now they've been put into what's called a lower condition. And that lower condition has a formula for them to get out of that lower condition. And as part of that formula, they have to say what amends they're going to do. And their amends might be, I'm going to go hand out flyers, or I'm going to go hand out pamphlets, or I'm going to go man a Dianetics table, or I'm going to go write letters, or I think no one said stuff envelopes or whatever. So nothing's free. Everything, in fact, if you cost the cult money, you're put into lower exchange. You're put into a lower condition. And, there's been times where we've heard some of the bigger ex-Scientologists out there have had to pay the light bills for an org, and they had nothing to do with that org, but they had to turn around and five grand to pay to keep the lights on at a particular org. Nothing's
Yep.
free. All money flows up. Ultimately, that's the goal. Welcome back.
Poor no one. Thank you. So these are, let's see, I don't know how this really works, but
Evolution of a science.
so this one is a Dianetics. Now, what I don't have with me right now is there's also the free personality test. This is another one. Now, they, sorry, it's got blurred background, so you're not seeing some of this, but this one, some people were told that this is a grand opening or a special flyer. That flyer is out every single day. They always say that there's something special about whatever's going on in this space. And
Sure.
we just had the May 9th celebration of Dianetics. So there's the idea that, hey, we're having a celebration of this, but this flyer was not made for the May 9th. It's a year-round element. And then the day that I was assaulted was this one. Now, this is the Hispanic version, but there's also an English version that went out. I wasn't able to intercept any of those that day. But yeah, and somebody is paying for these to get into the org so they can be handed out.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Every piece of paper that has printing like that, they're all being printed in LA, and then somebody's buying them for the org, and it's yeah, Fuzzy, I'm getting a little bit jealous of his collection. I don't have any of those, and I've got a lot of things, but those are one things I've already been like trying to hit him up for, like, hey, I need some of those, because when I was out there were no body routers. But yeah, somebody's paying for those pamphlets. And you see, like, when in LA, when the testing center there on Hollywood Boulevard was still open, you would see the body routers out there handing them out. And then as the squirrels were telling them, hey, that's Scientology, that's a cult, that's stuff, you would see that people just drop them on the ground. Well, the staff members didn't care. They didn't pick them back up, because one of their stats is they walk out with a certain number of flyers, they walk back in with less flyers. So if they pick up a flyer or a ticket or whatever that fell on the ground, they've killed their stats. But somebody else paid for it. The church, the David Miscavige and his little RTC and all those people, they didn't pay for it. No.
Right. Let me see. I'm going to share something real quick. Let's see here. So today I was out there, and by the way, I know that you're not allowed to create your own nickname. I do want the nickname Stat Crusher. In the Marvel community, what was Quake called? She was the Earth's destroyer of the Earth or something like that.
I don't remember that character. And I'm an Iron Man fan. I don't remember that character.
It was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Okay. I don't think I ever watched any of those episodes.
I want to show this real quick. So,
oh yeah, this was today, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
So this is today, and I've intercepted this body router a couple of times. This is an African American woman, rather thin. She always has a headdress on, or some kind of wrap around her head. Beautiful. And so I'm out in front of the org. I would say that 20 minutes earlier, she tried to come out, but she just wasn't going to come through those front doors because she saw I was out there. So I walked up to Harrison Street to kind of give her some relief. And also the other body router, the young male, had come in. So I wanted to make sure that he wasn't escaping out the back. I don't think you'll hear her, but I'll let it play. It's 40 seconds, and then I'll let you know what happens here.
Don't tell me what to do on a public sidewalk, ma'am. Don't tell me what to do on a public sidewalk.
Oh,
she's telling me not to follow her.
Her TRs were out.
There we go. Jay's using the appropriate use of the got him. Folks, please notice that I've given this person a very respectful distance.
So she's come out. She's pointed at me, and again that Fresh Prince, right? The in the opening to Fresh Prince when she wags her finger at him, you know.
Yeah.
that
Which,
that
I mean, that's a culturally insensitive thing to do.
yeah. It it I giggled when she said, "Don't follow me." And it's like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm going to go anywhere I can. And I've said this on several occasions. I will respect her right 100% to be able to deliver her propaganda. But I'm also going to say that I'm going to exert my First Amendment right to inform and educate everybody who receives that. And again, it's one of those situations where I'm very much showing that, listen, I'm not going to infringe upon your space.
So I did a live yesterday talking about how Hubbard said that he believed that e-meters should replace pew pews, and pew pews
Right.
being the shoot 'em up things. I think what you need to do is you need to have an e-meter. You need to just walk around with an e-meter and say, "Here, this should give you all the confidence in the world that you know that I'm not here to hurt you or to harm you."
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Walking around with a camera in public and following people from a safe distance is not a crime. And I don't care what anybody says. The stalking has to imply intent to harm, and you don't have any intent to harm. Have never had any intent to harm, and it's ridiculous to. But you know that they've got so. No one, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a Friday staff meeting, right? The week after you've submitted all your, you submitted your stats on Tuesday. There's like a Friday staff meeting, like a big staff meeting. You know that in those staff meetings, they've all been briefed on what to say to you now. They've all been briefed to say, stop following me or don't follow me or, you know. Did I lose you?
1 sec. I
Okay.
wanted to make sure that my mic was still there. So, because I did see somebody saying it was hard to hear me, and I don't know if it was hard to hear
No,
me or if
I
it was
hear
hard
you.
to hear the video.
I think it was the video. I can hear you real
Okay.
loud.
And by the way, when she was saying "Don't follow me," you absolutely couldn't hear her. I only had my mic on. Normally, I have a lot of times I have an extra mic with me that I can point towards anybody who's giving me conversation. I oftentimes flub because in the heat of the moment, I'm really just trying to engage what's going on there. But yeah, she just said, "Hey, don't follow me in that space."
And again, it goes back to they overheard that police officer. You had your whole video on. Yeah, it's a little sad, my collection of e-meters, but you know, I'm curious, and there was somebody that actually commented on one of my lives about we don't look too hard into the cult. We don't want to lose you. You guys, you're not going to lose me. I've been following this cult since 2005, as far as ever since Tom Cruise was jumping around on Oprah's couch, and good luck. And plus, I'm considered an illegal pre-clear, so they would never take me anyways. That being said, what I was going to say is now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, well, it's gone. Nevertheless. Free advice. 59th rule of acquisition. Ferengi use. Love it. Trekker here. I'm a Trekker here. I've got some collection of Star Trek up there too. Y'all can't really see my library. It's a good thing you can't see my basement because all my vintage computing gear is down there. You'd be scared to death.
There's another one I want to show, and I think that there's a Scientology's term for what's occurring here, but this person. So I just paused it here. So you see the large bald man with the briefcase, and there's a woman right behind this person, and she also has a carrying case of some sort. They have just walked out the south door. So they've walked out of the Church of Scientology at this point in time. And I think that's important to set the stage here because they're going to come by. I didn't know where they were going. They're going to come by me, and their car is right behind me. So let me.
Yeah, they're coming out of the Purif. And in fact, yeah.
Oh, because the towel.
The gym bags, the towels, they're coming out of
Should
their
women be allowed to report crimes if they're committed by the members of the church? Does that sound like something you should be supporting? The church wouldn't let Danny Masterson's victims come forward for 20 years. When they finally told the police, they were excommunicated. You know, family disconnection. Unable to talk to their family ever again.
So if you'll notice, that's
you didn't bring your coursework in?
That's the
out ethics. Got to bring your coursework in.
That's the Purification Rundown course book.
Gotcha. All right. Now I feel well, I still love that I gave them a hard time, but
yeah,
I thought that they were coming out because they forgot their coursework.
No,
in their car.
No, they did their 5 hours of in the sauna and exercising and drinking CalMag and drinking and taking unhealthy doses of niacin and ruining their bodies. And now they just took their showers and everything. Now they're gonna go in and study. So
Gotcha.
they're going to study. They're going to, because there's a course that goes along with it. They've still got to do check sheets. They've still got to do demonstrations and everything for the Purif as well. That's the new version of the course book. I've got older somewhat. So this is one of the older copies of the Purification Rundown, although this is the illustrated version. But that's the newer, and you can tell the newer course books because they kind of got a rounded edge around them. Instead of being in a binder, they kind of have a weird rounded edge. But yeah, they're just shifting to coursework. It's important to know that the Purification Rundown is the first major course action on the bridge to total freedom. So, and can also be done at any time after.
Yeah, and sometimes you will sometimes be asked to repeat it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you can be forced to repeat it. You can also choose to repeat it. It's like the cause resurgence. That's the running program. That's where you in flag down there. They have the run around the pole. It used to be the running program, which was actually a punishment that Hubbard invented during his crazy years towards the end of his life. And you can choose to do that. Just pay $2,500 or $3,000. Yeah, no one's got it exactly right. The Purif is sold to people as a help get the toxins out of your body. I had a live where I had a recorded video where we go through this book, but unfortunately the audio was so bad. But yeah, I mean, this talks about how toxins get into yourself and all this other stuff. And then it's sold as a cleansing and I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to body route you or reg you, which registrar into thinking it's like hot yoga, or it's like, any of these sweat programs that are supposed to cleanse you of your toxins in your blood and make you so much clearer and able to cognize, which is to create in your own head things, and it's actually probably it's one of the most dangerous as far as physically dangerous, although I think all the brainwashing techniques are dangerous. But it's probably one of the easier ones for the general public to get around, because we have a culture where things like hot yoga or other sweat programs and exercise programs are fairly common. But then they tack on this whole they get you up to 10,000 milligrams of niacin daily for like 5 weeks, which I've taken niacin before at a regular prescription level. And man, I felt like I was having a sunburn while laying in bed.
Yeah, that number it's 100x, right? Of the daily recommended dose for adults. Like if you look at a box of cereal, you're going to see niacin on almost every box of cereal, and it's going to be somewhere in the 45 to 50 milligram range.
What they do is they start you off with a lower dose, like 1,000 milligrams. And you feel like, and it says even in this book, it shows a picture of a guy sweating and jitteries and whatever, but it says your body's going to adapt. That's just the toxins getting out of your cells. That's the fallacy that they're talking about, and then they gradually over like 5 to 10 weeks or 20 weeks, They gradually raise you up, and you run on a treadmill or you walk on a treadmill, and then you go sit in a sauna for over a too long a period of time, and then you come back out for a few minutes. You drink some olive oil or liquid or CalMag, or take unhealthy doses of vitamins, and then you go back in and sweat some more. And a lot of people claim that, oh, I was sweating purple, or I was sweating all this. Those are the toxins coming out of my body. I'm like, give me a break.
Oops. Thanks. Sorry. I wanted to put this up here because you need a prescription, is
You
maybe
need
the way I'll say it.
clearance. You need clearance.
In order to do this. And the church has so many doctors that it's easy for them to get this, but it's, if you went to any reasonable doctor, you will never get this clearance.
There is a great YouTube, it's in French. There's a great video where a French investigative journalist magazine or whatever actually investigated the purification program in France or Quebec or someplace. And it even does an undercover with a doctor who they have to prescribe in other countries to get like those kinds of levels. You have to get a prescription for that kind of vitamins. And it's just crazy the amount, like you're buying this stuff in big bulk, boxes of vitamins and whatnot. I mean, it is not, it is just crazy. And
you're buying what GNC would buy to put on the shelf to send out.
And what's even crazy is they get children as young as like 5 years old to do this. And their rationale is that it's not that you've been exposed to like narcotics or marijuana or things. It's just you've been exposed to background toxins in the air and in the pollution in the air and whatnot, or in your food or in your water. And so you're getting that out. And like the amount of cognitive dissonance that it takes for people to even think that that is a healthy thing to do is absolutely the definition of insanity.
Correct. Now, one of the scariest things that I remember in the early days of Chicago protesting, and I like that I'm saying that as if it's 45 days ago at this point in time. But
feels like forever though, doesn't it?
Trashy did not start dumpster diving in Printers Row.
No,
he got some information out of the dumpsters up in Lakeview, and it was showing children who were on the Purif and talking about their experience on the Purif. And at the Lakeview, before they knew that they were being protested or audited, their windows were up and you could see the sauna. So it was a visible element that you could see people going into in those earliest days when Trashy and Shannon were first up there.
Can I don't know, I don't think I can share my screen, but I wish I could, because
why not? Does anybody know if there's a way I can
let
a guest?
Oh wait, I can share my screen. Give me a second.
Okay. Make it happen, man.
Yeah, I can do it. Give me just a second.
I appreciate everybody being here tonight. And as I've said a couple of times, if you are on a phone and you can only watch one channel, please watch Dave. I think I love his content, and I want him to get to that point of monetization. I want him to get the better visibility in here. So my goal is really to help boost the signal for Dave's channel. I think he's such a well-educated never-in.
Thank you. Can you see that share? Can you add that to the stage?
Yes.
Guys, that is currently on a site called Scientologyparent.com. And you have, these kids are what, 9, 10 years old, and they have certificates from the purification rundown. And this is on a website called Scientology Parent. You've got you see these people right here wearing, that's the Cause Resurgence hoodie jacket. That's the symbol of the running program. And you see these kids wearing purification rundown T-shirts. And there's flag. And there's happy parents. Oh my gosh. Look at what my kids are going to do. I think Aaron has even talked about this family. This is one of the few public members out there that are allowed to talk about Scientology. Look at this.
I can't. My hamstrings hurt.
I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things where we've kind of recently heard these statements of there's no children in Scientology, and then the back off of, oh, I meant there's no children in Sea Org, and then it's like definition of children might be interesting in regards to what you're saying. That we're definitely seeing some rather young people in here, and historically, you basically did sell is the wrong term because you didn't get anything back for it other than status. You send your children off to be an auditor. I think that's Serge's story, right? The idea that they were going to get clout because they
got their OT levels.
Child. Yeah.
I think they got their OT levels because of that. I think even no one said that if you don't get your children into Scientology, you are put into an ethics program. You are put into lower conditions because you didn't get your family, you didn't get your children, that you don't you're supposed to sacrifice your children to the cult. And but they don't cater the amount of niacin. I don't think they cater any of the program. They cannot deviate from L. Ron Hubbard's writings on the Purification Rundown just because of your age, just because of your size. And I mean, those kids that I just showed on that screen, they're very slim children. I mean, they're very healthy looking, but they're not, and think about it also. These kids could likely be just like Patrick just said, they're being indoctrinated. Can you imagine the recruiters just beating down that family's door? And I think even the parents themselves were at one point, I think they were in the Sea Org or something. I can't remember, but because Aaron's had them he's talked about them on his channel before. These kids are destined for either a life of Sea Org servitude or staff servitude or public servitude in the cult. Yeah. No one says if you object, you're effed. Yeah. And yeah, the Purification Rundown is repeatable, and you pay for it. Remember, guys, you pay for everything you get in the cult. You pay for your auditing, you pay for your coursework, you pay for your materials, you pay for your security checks, you pay for
your penalties. That's the thing that I think is
you pay. Nothing is free. It's so sad.
We might not get to it tonight, and I know we've been on for quite a while, and I really appreciate everybody being here. Hopefully you found this to be an engaging conversation. Yeah. One of the saddest days that I've had out protesting was Easter Sunday. And on Easter Sunday, I looked in the back door. They had the back door open when I arrived at the org. And when I looked in, there's kids in there playing tag, anywhere from 6 to 9 years old. They're playing tag. So they feel like, when I was a kid, you played tag when you felt comfortable in a space, right?
Right.
So that was really, really just disturbing. And then I'm out front, and you would see these families who were getting flyers about, hey, come celebrate Easter with the church, right? And they were bringing in their children with little Easter baskets so that they could get their either Easter eggs or jelly beans, whatever the situation is. And it was just traumatizing to me to see that these people didn't understand what they were just about to bring their children into.
I have read, and I don't know if I had it on, I don't think I've talked about it yet on my lives, but I have read documents where children, even as young as just born children, are getting touch assists, are getting some form of child Dianetics auditing of some, and it's just disgustingly sick that they, the cult, So for those that don't know, Hubbard had this whole how to raise your child, and he's got called child Dianetics, and it's a form of Dianetics and it's a form of parenting for your children, and it's disgusting. And we're gonna do a live on it eventually. I got so many lives. I'm gonna be doing lives on this content for the rest of my life, but or until the cult is like my Sherry says, one day the cult will be in a museum, and there'll be people talking about. Do you remember this thing called Scientology? And that's the hope, right? That it's eventually just a museum or it's a history thing. But he has this whole way and philosophy of raising children, and it's absolutely disgusting. It takes away all manner of parental rights. It takes away all manner of common sense child rearing and tries to apply Hubbard technology to it. Anyway, I just saw LA and Toronto said at the LRH birthday event we were seeing strollers. Yeah. Um, so anyhow, yep. I think we could keep talking forever, but
Let me do one. I want to do one more
sure.
video because we did talk about this earlier today. Now let me make sure I can find it.
By the way, people, if anybody is out there in the lives that are living in these areas that might know some of the faces in these orgs, might have information on, who we can help identify these people. That's one of my goals, is to try to figure out, kind of like Streets does with the whole facial recognition. Although I don't have access to facial recognition software, although artificial intelligence is probably going to get there at some point. We want to find out who these people are, and they're finding out who we are. And that's, I don't care who they know, if they know who I am, but it's time, we'll fight fire with fire. When it comes to information is knowledge and power. Please feel free to email myself at dave@declaredave.com or email Wendy. What's your email, Wendy?
WindyCityThetanWatch@gmail.com.
Yeah. We keep sources confidential. You can trust us. I know people say that and they're like, don't ever trust anybody that says you can trust us. But
yeah. This one, we've been talking about the young people that are in the church, right? This next clip is going to be an elderly lady. And again, I don't know if you're allowed to say elderly lady. This person is not young. I've seen this person several times. The very first time that I saw Jessica body routing, 3 body routers came back to the org and the security guard were out front. This person was struggling to step up off the curb. So they walk across the street and there's a curb on the sidewalk. They have to get up there. She was struggling to get up there. I'm like, why in the world hasn't any one of you turned around to offer this person an arm to help them in this situation? But anyhow, this is the Sunday of the assault. We're going to see, I'm just going to nicely engage this person.
You got the sound muted.
Oh, thank
Understanding
you.
as to why she's not in her retirement joyful time. Now, maybe she does come here and write in the letters. That's awesome, but it's tough. So.
We can see her kind of walking up through the window there.
How are you today? It works that way. Yep.
So far she says, "Oh my gosh, a cheerful, joyful sound. Getting old, is what she said so far."
Ouch. Yeah.
That was the scariest thing I heard that day when she said, "I wish it would all go away." I didn't think about back pain first. I thought a much more traumatic experience at that point in time. And, I do think that she was talking about her back, but you can see she's got a cane. She has to walk with that cane. She's talked about her back pain. I wish it would all go away.
I hear you. Do you can you take pain medication for it, or can you do therapy for it? Can you do Can you do pain medication for the back, or can you do therapy for the back?
Never. I don't take
Okay.
any kind of drugs.
but even like therapy maybe, or stretching, like chiropractic or something like that.
Sometimes that helps.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the one chiropractor that did help, he's out of practice.
My grandparents had the same thing, that their doctors kept on resigning and retiring as they were aging.
Yeah,
So
that's a problem.
right. So all right, you have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Heat sometimes helps too. Heat.
Rest sometimes.
Yeah.
And posture.
Yep, definitely. Oh, thank you. I need to do that better too.
It's just enough to deter me.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't get too proud about yourself.
Understood.
So I don't have to worry about that.
Such a joy. You have a great day.
I don't know if you heard what she said there at the end. It's just enough to keep you down, so you never get too proud. And thankfully, I don't have to worry about that. So, if she was not wearing that uniform, she is any other older woman that I've ever seen on the sidewalk. Right? I mean, whose grandma is that not?
I mean, I've seen them in Florence too. I mean, they're mostly old people. They're old. I call them seasoned citizens. They're, and she's foundation staff because she was coming in for the evening.
Right.
And
you had said, I've got it here, right? So we've known this. So she's also talked to Trashy V12 BMW, by the way. Get over there and subscribe to him as well. Haven't seen him for a while. I think it's summer season and he's out doing car shows. But he's talked to her as well. And we know through that conversation, she comes in and she writes letters, right? And what the letter reg is, right, we've got the mailing list of either people who are off course or haven't been on course for a while, or they're dead letters for, dead mailing lists. Can you please start writing letters to these people to get them either back on course or pull them into the org as a new initiate?
Yep. It's often what the elderly staff members will end up doing is they'll sit them at a desk or a table and they'll literally have, and I think you even said this person probably writes letters by hand, like freehand letters. And that's their stat, is how many letters they get out that day. Asking people to get auditing, get courses, come into the org, letting them know about events, asking why they're not there. A reg in Scientology is a short for registrar. And a registrar is the person that's responsible for booking your coursework and booking your auditing hours, and basically the one and selling you books, selling you course materials. And they're the ones that often will get in trouble for maxing out your credit cards or opening credit cards in your name without you knowing, or getting another Scientologist to pay for your coursework or your bridge work and then making you pay that back, or so the reg is one of the least favorite jobs from what I hear in Scientology, because you're basically a high pressure salesperson. Think of a timeshare salesperson, but on another level.
Yeah, both Patrick and then I'll bring up no one's really quickly here. It's odd. Everything's a stat in Scientology, and in this situation, letters out is the stat. So she needs to write one more letter than she wrote last week, every single week.
And she can't sandbag her stats, or else she'll be put into a lower condition, because if she writes too many letters this week, then she's got to write that many more plus the next week, because you always got to be up and vertical in your stats. And if your stats start to go down, you get put into danger condition, and then a danger condition leads into really bad stuff and keep going down and down and down. And then you're going to be put onto lower conditions where you have to write up a program for getting back up, and you have to ask for penitence and go do an amends project. And it's just Hubbard had crazy ideas on how humans should exist and should survive, and it's just
And what no one's showing here is this isn't a form letter. This isn't a template that you write Lisa's name at the top and then Larry's name at the top and then Fred's name at the top. You're writing individual content for everybody that you're putting this letter out to.
Yep, there. And according to Hubbard, it isn't the quality of your mailing list, it's the quantity of your mailing list, which is why you never want to go into an org or ever give them your real email address or your real mailing address or your real name, unless you're a masochistic like I am and you want that material coming your way because you want to be able to put it up on the web or on YouTube. They will continue to send you letters regardless, and they will track you down. They will forward address you till your ending days. So
this is an interesting question, and I've wondered this before because there's sometimes where you have to continually improve. So do you just take a really bad down week so that you can start low and then start climbing again?
I think
What
they
happens
can.
there?
I think they can go into danger conditions. Like, your stats can dip a little bit, and then you have to, and no one will have to. No one or Patrick would have to, give us a correct us on this. But you just don't want it to go into an emergency decline, and it's just supposed to be. You can have little blips, I guess you would call them, but you don't really want to. You also don't want to inflate your stats. You don't want to. It's not stat crashing, although that is a Scientology term. It's oh my gosh, it's called. It's a derogatory for inflating your stats, but no one or Patrick.
You've said it a couple of times already.
Yeah, I'm getting tired, I think, and so,
I can't remember if it's the false stats, something like false stats, but
falsify your stats. But there's an actual slang in Scientology for what it's called to like artificially inflate your stats somehow. I don't know. I'd have to look in the dictionary. By the way, Scientology has its own sets of dictionaries because they yeah.
Joe Rez, I want to say that's a name I haven't seen before. Really appreciate being in here, and just thanks for calling that out. It helps us understand that what we're doing is productive.
Yeah, welcome to everybody that's new on the chat. Welcome to everybody that's been here all the time. We love having you. Wendy does an awesome job. He's a foot soldier. He's a general out there. He's out there constantly in Chicago. For those of you who don't know, he is very much invested in keeping people from getting into the cult. That's his goal, and he does a really good job. He's nimble and quick. He's got the tech at his beck and call. He's done some drone flyovers. He's pissed the cult off with that, and I say the more power to you for doing it. He has some really great, awesome camera technology, and he can move like the wind. He is the pure essence of Wendy, and he also does these great recaps like we're doing tonight. I've gotten to know Wendy and really appreciate what you consider him a friend, and he's the one that gets all the yawns. Everyone yawns at him.
I bore everybody. Tell you what, it's really late for Dave right now. I'm going to say I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Not ask what, but I'm going to open it up. If you're in chat right now and there's something you'd like myself to do or something that you'd like Dave to do, something that we can improve, let us know. Is there something you want to see a video on? Is there something you want us to do out on the streets? Here's an opportunity to talk straight to the horses' mouths.
Yeah, I was gonna throw up a false reporting. Yeah, no one said false reporting.
Right.
For those of you who don't know, I run a channel called Declare Dave Loves Suppressive Sherry. My wife and I are both virulent anti-Scientologists. We occasionally can manage to get to an org. We don't live close to an org, but we get up there and we do some auditing and protesting. In the meantime, at least 3 times a week, unless otherwise, I do nightly lives on the Eastern time where I discuss the cult, discuss its history, discuss its capers and crimes, and discuss the people in the cult, and try to link the history and the writings of L. Ron Hubbard and the history of how the cult has grown over time to what we see today, to whether that's uncovering documents or reading books or doing show and tells or looking at e-meters. And then I do some collaborations with Wendy here. I do have some interviews lined up, so please keep an eye out for your notifications. Check out my community page. We've got some really interesting interviews coming up, y'all. I mean, I'm talking some really cool stuff that you're going to want to tune into, especially if you care about bringing this cult down.
I'm
And everyone's
really interested in your next interview that you've got going on. I think that's going to be just incredible. And I have an interview coming up this Thursday.
That's right.
At 6 Central. It's going to be with somebody. So we often hear about the second gens, the third gens. I know somebody who, when they were younger, they joined Scientology. They have since left Scientology, right? So this is somebody who walked in, and I just want to get a feedback from him on what drew you into this. How did you become or fall prey to what the Church of Scientology had for you?
And I'm trying to line up an interview with somebody that almost got pulled into the cult, and I'm hoping that they'll be willing to chat live, to just talk about the weird experience. They weren't even intending to be a part of it, but I'm hoping I can get them live. That's not what's coming up, but we want to look outside and interview people that have even had brushes with this cult, and just find out what the public is really seeing. What's their perception? Everybody talks about Tom Cruise and John Travolta, but this cult's out there just with the everyday Joes like you and me. So
excellent. All right, folks, we've had Dave up late enough. It's 10:30 my time. It's later his time. So I appreciate everybody being here. We really love that everybody was here. It looks like Fuzzy set us up for a room raid over to Cutsy, who's out in front of La Poubelle. And just it's been fun. Hopefully it was educational. Hopefully it was entertaining. Please make sure that you're subscribed to Dave's channel. Make sure that your notifications are on so you can hear when he's doing it. And the same thing with my channel. So
leave a comment.
Yep.
Hello to the replay crew. Thank you to the mods. Fuzzy is my primo mod as well. Thank you to No One and Patrick. They are they're always in our lives helping out, and to everybody else that comes in. We'd love to have you here.
And another special call out, Michael Andreas has, since the first time that I went live, he is my Wikipedia for when I'm stammering out in public, trying to remember what am I supposed to say to this person. Michael's always had my back for that, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're getting
all right, folks.
All right.
I appreciate everybody's time there. Have a great night. Let's go over and share some love over at Cutsy. Thanks,
Good night, everybody. Good night, everybody.